Y'all ever get the sense that the contradictions of capitalist development are reaching a point of cataclysm? No? Well, Lenin did, particularly in the years preceding World War I. Volume 17 is a large one, and it took me some time to read it all. Not only that, but the US ban on ByteDance meant that I no longer have access to Capcut, so I had to find another way to record these videos. Be thankful that I made it within a month. There are a number of small articles, letters, and thoughts that Lenin lays out, but the principal topics addressed in this volume that I will go over concern one, the ongoing battle against reformists and liquidationists, sympathizers, especially Trotsky, in the context of the elections to the Fourth Duma. Two, the Prague Conference and conflict over the recognition of a legitimate party. Three, policies and assassination of Prime Minister Pyotr Stolypin. And four, the Fourth Duma and the platform of the RSDLP. In the 15th anniversary of the fall of serfdom, Lenin points out that the only reason the government liberated the serfs in the first place was because it had suffered such a major loss in the Crimean War. The regime attributed its loss to a backwards industry and realized that the only way that they could catch up is if the peasants could become a major source of wage labor. So there are multiple articles in this volume on the peasant reforms to observe the anniversary. In this social structure of state power, Lenin explicates the theory that the period from 1908 to 1910, the bourgeoisie has become cognizant of its class position and learned valuable lessons from the experiences of 1905 to 1907. In response, they've taken a stronger position against Russian socialism in particular. Lenin recognizes this as their conscientization in class warfare. Lenin was not the only person who felt a looming sense of catastrophe. In the conference of the British Social Democratic Party, he explains how British socialists in particular were aware that their government was on a crash course with industrializing Germany because of, for one, increasing competition on the world market. Climax of the party crisis, Lenin gives a succinct history of the factionalism in the party as he understands it. Basically, whereas in 1907 and a little before, one could read about the quote unity crisis in the party, the counter-revolution of 1907 changed the categories of disunity, introducing liquidationists, Odzovists, explained in the previous episode, and conciliationists, embodied here by Trotsky, who claimed to be outside of either of these factions. He says that these factions that wanted to liquidate the illegal organizations of the party played into the hands of Stolypin by handing him not only the conspirators involved in illegal activity, but diluting, in a sense, the revolutionary goals of the party. The issue really derived from the January 2nd to 23rd, 1910 unity meeting of the RSDLP held in Paris. Although Lenin did not want the meeting to convene, Trotsky managed to have it meet with the help of his allies, Zinoviev, Kamenev, and Rykov. Once there, Lenin planned on establishing unity with the pro-party Mensheviks led by Plekhanov in order to work against the liquidationists. But the plan was opposed by Trotsky and his allies, who instead wanted to who demanded dismemberment of all factions. In exchange, Lenin agreed to disband the Bolshevik organ of Proletari on condition that liquidationism and Odzovism also be condemned and disbanded. The parties agreed, but ultimately they didn't fulfill their promises, so Lenin and the Bolsheviks rescinded their agreement. For Trotsky at this time, Lenin reserved a particular wrath, arguing that his unwillingness to take a side and his determination to find points of conciliation made him, in fact, sympathetic to the liquidationists. Some ink is spilled on the assassination of Stolypin, who Lenin says merely represented the middleman between the bourgeoisie and the monarchy. Stolypin was the man who could placate the middle class liberals while gradually handing power back to the Tsar, according to Lenin. The two other topics in this volume concern the elections to the Fourth Duma and the Prague Conference of the party. Using the experience from the Third Duma in campaign for elections to the Fourth Duma, Lenin analyzed a number of regions in Russia and concluded that after 1908, the line of demarcation between liberalism and democrat has to be more clearly drawn. As experience has shown, the cadets, for example, and the Octoberists were more willing to ally themselves with the Black Hundreds, those conservatives, over the few socialist deputies. In another work, Fundamental Problems of the Election Campaign, Lenin most succinctly addresses doubts within the party about whether and to what extent they should participate in the elections by saying, quote, "If your party is really to attain a full understanding of the tasks of the class, and if its activity is actually to be of a class nature and not of a guild nature, it is necessary for it not only to take part in political life, but, in spite of all the vacillations of the liberals, to direct the political life and initiative of the broad strata onto a greater arena than that indicated by liberals toward more substantial and more radical aims." Finally, the sixth Prague All-Russia Conference of the RSDLP. There are a lot of draft resolutions from this critical conference that saw a major split between the Bolsheviks on the one hand and the rest of the RSDLP. Stalin, who was not at the Prague conference, but who nevertheless played a role through his participating comrades and his growing influence, noted that, quote, "This conference was of the utmost importance to the history of our party, for it drew a boundary line between the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks and amalgamated the Bolshevik organizations all over the country into a united Bolshevik party." So what happened? Here's a short list of some of those resolutions. 1. Failing in their agrarian policy, the Tsarist government and the industrial bourgeoisie is turning toward nationalism and colonialism in places like Mongolia and Persia. 2. They denounced and excluded the liquidationists once and for all. 3. Recommitment to the illegal and legal organization of the party with a reestablished central committee. 4. They moved to set limits on the non-Russian national delegates and their ability to interfere disproportionately with party work concerning Russia, because essentially they worked with liquidators, and a lot of these non-Russian nationals had repeatedly threatened the central organs of the party. 5. The majority of illegal work concerned propagandizing and spreading literature and speeches to workers and unions. This required money. 6. The conference recognized the absolute necessity of participating in the Fourth Duma elections, promoting a candidate. The election slogans were to be for a democratic republic, 8-hour workday, and confiscation of all landed estates. 7. The official expulsion of the factions led to the creation of the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party, Bolsheviks, as a separate body from the Mensheviks, once and for all. That's all for now, until volume 18, and until I could figure out the video stuff. Thanks for listening. Until next time.